Today, we're diving into a really strange medical mystery. It's one where your own body, your immune system, gets confused and starts attacking the very wiring that controls everything you do, how you move, how you feel. It's like a civil war inside your own nervous system. So we're going to unpack how doctors figure this whole thing out.
This one sentence right here just says it all. It really captures the devastating speed of the condition we're talking about. I mean, just imagine, you're living your life, and then, in a matter of months, you lose the ability to walk. That is the reality for people who get caught in this neurological storm.
So you have to ask, how does something like this even happen? Well, to get to the bottom of it, we're going to follow the exact diagnostic journey that doctors take. We'll piece together all the clues one by one to solve the mystery of what's going on when the body's internal wiring just starts to break down.
And our guide through this whole process is going to be a real-life patient, a 52-year-old construction worker. A guy who literally built his life on being physically strong right before his own body started to tear that life apart.
Just think about how fast that is. It starts with something you might just ignore, a little tingling, but it doesn't stop. It just keeps getting worse, spreading from his legs up into his arms, until this man who built things for a living can't even stand up by himself anymore. He lost 40 pounds, not from being sick, but because it was just too hard to even make his own food. So yeah, this is the puzzle we're trying to solve.
All right, so if you're a doctor and you see this happening to someone, where do you even start? Well, the very first step is to become a detective. You have to look at every single symptom, meticulously. The pattern of what's there and, just as importantly, what's not there, that's going to be our first big clue.
And this is where the detective work gets really interesting. See, the weakness isn't just random, it's symmetric, meaning it's happening on both sides of his body at the same time. It's hitting the muscles close to his core, like his shoulders, and the ones far away, like his hands. His reflexes? Gone. But the symptoms he doesn't have are just as telling. No double vision, no trouble swallowing. This very specific pattern is a massive red flag that lets doctors start crossing other terrible things like ALS off the list. Now, to understand what's coming next, we've got to talk about something called myelin. The easiest way to think about it is like an electrical wire. The copper part in the middle, that's your nerve fiber, the axon. And the rubber coating on the outside, that's the myelin. Without that insulation, the electrical signal just shorts out or it slows way down. And that insulation is right at the heart of this mystery. So this brings doctors to a huge fork in the road. Is the immune system attacking the myelin, the insulation, which would cause the nerve signals to slow to a crawl? Or is it something worse, where it's attacking the axon, the wire itself, and just cutting off the connection completely? Based on our patient's symptoms, the progressive weakness and the tingling, all the signs are pointing to a problem with that protective insulation.
But, a really strong hunch just isn't good enough in medicine. To prove this whole myelin theory, doctors can't just guess. They need to find the smoking gun. And they do that by actually measuring the electricity in the nerves to find hard evidence of the damage.
And the way they do that is with something called a nerve conduction study. Honestly, it's pretty much like a speed trap for your nervous system. They send a tiny little electrical pulse down a nerve and then time how long it takes to get from point A to point B. And from that, they can figure out exactly how fast the signal is moving. And boom, there it is, the smoking gun. In a healthy person, that nerve signal is flying at high speed. But in our patient, the test showed a massive slowdown. The electrical messages weren't racing, they were crawling. This is the absolute, definitive proof of demyelination. The insulation is failing.
Okay, there's one more classic piece of evidence they look for, and it comes from a spinal fluid analysis. Doctors are looking for this, and get ready for a mouthful, albuminocytologic dissociation. It sounds super complicated, but all it really means is that the protein levels in the spinal fluid are super high, but the number of immune cells is totally normal. And that happens because the inflamed nerve roots are basically leaking protein into the fluid.
So when you put it all together, the clinical symptoms, the slowed down nerve signals, and those spinal fluid results, all the evidence points to one single culprit. We can finally give this thing a name.
And that name is chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyradiculoneuropathy, or for short, CIDP. Okay, let's just break that down really quick. Chronic just means it goes on for more than 8 weeks. Inflammatory demyelinating means the immune system is causing inflammation that's stripping away that myelin insulation. And polyradiculoneuropathy, that's just a really fancy way of saying it affects a whole bunch of nerves all over your body. It's the body's electrical system short-circuiting itself. But here's a fact that is just absolutely staggering. Even with all these clues, The misdiagnosis rate for CIDP is estimated to be around 50%, sometimes even higher. That's literally a coin flip. And what that means is that so many patients suffer for months, even years, getting the wrong treatments, while permanent nerve damage is just setting in.
So why is it so hard to get right? Well, it's because CIDP can look like a lot of different things. About half of the cases are typical, like our construction worker, but lots of them are atypical. Some might just affect your sense of touch, others only your muscles, and some can be totally lopsided. This huge variety is exactly what makes it such a tough diagnosis to nail down.
But look, getting the diagnosis right is a huge part of the battle. So what's next? Well, the good news is, this story isn't all doom and gloom. The journey now switches from figuring it out to actually fighting back against the immune system's attack.
And this is a really important point. The treatments don't actually fix the damaged wires. What they do is they tell the immune system, hey, stand down, stop the friendly fire, and that gives the body a chance to stop the damage from getting any worse.
And the first-line treatments are pretty powerful. Doctors can use corticosteroids, which just broadly calm the entire immune system down. Another option is IVIG, which uses antibodies from donors to basically distract and quiet the patient's own immune response. And then there's plasma exchange, which is almost like dialysis for your immune system. It physically filters out the bad antibodies that are causing all the damage.
And here is the best part. Even though the diagnosis is really hard, the treatment is often incredibly effective. The overall response rate is about 80%. So getting the right diagnosis can, quite literally, give a patient their life back.
And this is why that huge diagnostic delay we talked about is so critical. Because while lots of patients can go into remission, any damage to the actual nerve wire, the axon, that happened before treatment started can be permanent. So getting that diagnosis early and getting it right is the absolute key to preventing a long-term disability.
And that really brings us to our final thought here. The story of CIDP is just this powerful reminder of how complex our bodies are and how challenging diagnoses can be. It really makes you wonder, if a condition that has good treatments can hide in plain sight for so long, how many other solvable medical mysteries are out there just waiting for someone to piece the right clues together?